You just joined us. We've finished the first session of the show. There we talked more athletics and brought you our top 5 stories. But now we are going to the world of boxing. The fourth squad rope. A lot happened, of course, yesterday. What a night of boxing history we witnessed at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. In a battle that reignited the fierce family rivalry between Chris Eubank Jr. He delivered a statement performance against Conor Benn. For all those who are not familiar with these two boxers, let me tell you a story. He secured a unanimous decision victory after 12 brilliant rounds in the 4 squared rope. This wasn't justified. It was decades of legacy, pride, and personal redemption wrapped into an unforgettable clash. From the emotional, unexpected arrival of Chris Eubank Sr. to the raw, relentless exchanges in the ring, this bout gave us everything: the drama, the intensity, the hurt, and also a nod to the legacy and legends before them. Today, we are joined by Seb Alston, an expert voice in the sport, to break down what this fight meant, how it unfolded, and what it tells us about the future for both fighters. Thank you so much, Seb Alston, for joining us on the show.
Incredible fight, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Incredible fight indeed, one that we can never forget that happened at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. First, Seb, how would you sum up the performance of Chris Eubank Jr., both technically and also mentally, on such a very emotional charged night?
I think from an emotional point of view, I think he did incredibly well to deal with the occasion. He's obviously been through a lot in the past couple of years. And obviously in the past month or so, you know, with the relationship with his father and going back and trying to defend his family's legacy, that's a massive pressure on his shoulders. And he's had to deal with massive pressure throughout his whole career with that name attached to him. And he dealt with it really well. And I think early on in the fight, to manage to deal with that and overcome the speed and intensity that Ben was showing early in the fight, and then you could see how drained he was physically around round 5, round 6. I've never seen him like that in a fight before, but then he used his experience to close up and get close into Ben, and he went toe-to-toe with him, standing in the ring, and his father said to him, I mean, that was legendary stuff, and it truly was from Eubank. I mean, from a technical point of view, I don't think the performance was actually that great, really, from Eubank.
Wow.
He's not going to be looking... I think people like Canelo Alvarez, which is maybe a fight that's been talked about as potentially a future fight for Eubank Jr. I don't think Alvarez will be looking at that fight and really fearing much. I think it's just... For the occasion, I think he did really well to overcome it. But from a technical standpoint, there were vulnerabilities there. And I think if Ben had been a little bit more experienced and had a little bit more nuance about him in the ring, maybe hadn't come out so quickly, hadn't made, you know, a couple of mistakes, I think that he could have really hurt Eubank Jr. And I think that obviously he's not been in the ring for a while, Eubank Jr., so maybe there's a little ring rust coming in there. But either way, I don't think he's going to be going away from this fight with huge amounts of confidence that he can really go into maybe the super middleweight division and actually really challenge for a title belt. So, yes, he's got the win, but I wouldn't be going away from it if I was Eubank Jr. with tons of confidence that I can go on and maybe get a title belt. All
right, your reservations have been noted, but for Conor, I saw him start strong. I saw him. He was landing some dangerous shots early in that bout. But in your view, Seb, what adjustment did Eubank make in the mid-fight that allowed him to take so much control and close dominantly against Conor Benn?
He started to use his jab a lot more, and I think early in the fight he was a little bit maybe overwhelmed, maybe a tiny bit by the occasion. Also, I think it was just a natural ebb and flow of the fight that Ben... Obviously, he started so quickly and so intensely, and I think he felt he had to because that was his advantage, his speed. And once that sort of wore off, because he started so quickly, and I think he started a bit too quickly, once he started to get a little bit tired, I think then Eubank started to control the ring a bit more, and that ring control was really prominent in the middle rounds of the fight. Eubank... He closed up really, got real close into Ben. He sort of controlled it in that sort of way by getting super close to Ben and not allowing Ben to get these long-ranging punches in. And I think when it came to that close distance fighting, Eubank's technical superiority really came to the fore, and that's why he was able to controlling it and land the more dangerous punches in those middle to latter rounds of the fight. So I think it was just experience of knowing what he needed to do mid-fight, change the style, get close in, not go for long-range punches, get close into the body, work the jab, and that's why he was able to land more punches in those middle rounds, I think.
That's a good one there. I didn't see those punches from Conor Benn, but Eubank, how he was able to, close up was really, really surprising for me. Let me bring in Bemideko Popola, who has been with me, of course, at the early of the show. All right, we would reconnect with him when his networks allows us. But Seb, they say like father, like son. The presence of Chris Eubank Sr. clearly brought out that emotional layer in this bout. And it made me feel, when you have your parents on ringside cheering you on, spurring you to go on, there's this emotional attachment to it. Do you think that moment energized Eubank Jr., or did it really carry the risks of distracting him from the job at hand?
No, I think it was a massive help for Eubank Jr. because this was a fight of really close margins, and that when it got to the absolute penultimate rounds of the fight, the real closing rounds of the fight, round 11, round 12, and Eubank Jr. was absolutely on his feet and needed that little bit of motivation to spur him on. I think knowing that he was truly fighting for his family's legacy because his father was there and had that really inspirational ring walk with him, standing by his side. I think that those tiny little details are the sort of thing that kept him going in the fight, honestly, because as I said before, I've never seen him that gassed, that out on his feet in a fight before. He was really having to dig deep, and I think that those sort of emotional, because they say boxing is 90% a mental game, and having that father figure in your corner, and I saw that he did occasionally come over to the corner and give him a couple of words in between rounds, and just having that and knowing that he's by his side. He said before the fight it wasn't going to make a difference, but I think we saw in the ring it did really make a difference. That. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, an emotional one there. I think it got me a little bit with goosebumps and all, having to see his dad, celebrate with him after this. It's just like my son just made me proud. It's a family rivalry, and we're able to put out the Eubank name in a great style. But Seb, given everything surrounding this fight, the failed drug test, the weight complications, the personal jabs from the two fighters, what does this mean? This big win right now, what does it mean to Chris Eubank Jr.'s career moving forward? And what do you think will be next for Conor Benn?
I think for both of them, honestly, I think the rematch is the match that makes sense for both of them. There is a rematch clause that I think Conor revealed does exist, and I think everyone would love to see it. If it's anything like the fight we saw last night, everyone would want to see a rematch. And I think for Eubank Jr., as I said before, I just don't quite see him having that technical ability, that almost drive as well, to really, really challenge for the big super middleweight title belts, which I think he would do because he clearly struggled with the weight of middleweight. So I think for him, I think a rematch makes massive sense, because also in terms of his legacy in boxing, this is a fight that will go down in British boxing history. And if you have another one, if you have a follow-up, a sequel, that just adds to the legacy of this personal battle between them as well, and I think that would etch his name in British boxing history even more. So for him, I think that makes more sense, because as I said, if he goes and tries to fight Canelo Alvarez, I don't think he has a chance of winning. So for his legacy, I think he's better off doing the rematch. For Conor Benn, obviously that he could drop down to welterweight once again, and I think that would make sense, because he definitely has a title fight on the line there if he wants it with Mario Barrios.
But I beg your pardon, Seb, do you see signs that he can still be a major player in that 154 or even stay in 160 for Conor Benn?
It's difficult for Conor Benn because I think maybe, but he didn't quite have the power, I don't think, to truly challenge. Because you have to remember, at the end of the day, he is also fighting a past his prime Chris Eubank Jr. It wasn't like he was fighting Chris Eubank Jr. in his prime or any of the other top fighters in the middleweight category. and he still came up short. And yes, I thought it was an incredible performance from Conor Benn, but that was taking into account that he was stepping up 2 weight divisions. I think if you take that away and he did go down to welterweight, then I think he'd be probably the favourite for the title belt against Barrios. So I think that for him it would make sense. I think it still makes sense because he's only 28. He's got time on his side to take that rematch, and then after that, I think then he can drop down to welterweight once again. So for Ben, I think he's got a lot of potential after this fight. It was a very unknown quantity coming into the fight. Obviously, he's an unbeaten fighter, but he hadn't fought anyone of any real caliber going into last night. And now he's fought someone with some caliber behind him. He stepped up 2 weight divisions. I thought it was really promising. He hadn't fought in over a year. So to still come out with that sort of performance, having not fought in a year, was really, really promising. So I think for Ben, even though in the short term he's going to walk away from this and he's going to be super disappointed because he's been through so much with the failed drugs test and having to overcome that, I think even though he's been through a lot and this meant so much for him trying to win it for his father, he's going to be super disappointed. But once he has some clarity in his mind, I think he'll be able to look back on this performance and think, this could be the start of a really, really promising career. He's only 28. He's got time on his side. And I think take the rematch, learn from his mistakes. Maybe he could just get the win over a Eubank Jr. in a year's time where he's going to be a year older and he's not going to be getting any better. And so I think he could maybe nick the rematch. And even if he doesn't, then he can drop down to welterweight and have a really promising career ahead of him.
All right, we're hoping that he takes those options, but it was a grueling encounter there. Tough round bout at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Chris Eubank against Conor Benn, but one proud father remains so happy with his son that he was able to live up to that rivalry and then keep the name hoisted atop over there. Eubank Sr, Jr, they still remain winners. Thank you so much, Seb Alston. It's been an interesting conversation. I'm hoping that we can do this more concerning very big bouts like this one.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's been super interesting to talk about.
Great to have you. A pleasure. Have a lovely day. All right. I know that Bemideko Pokuola has been having a big war with his network, but I understand that he's back. Bemideko, are you back right now? Please acknowledge.
Yeah, I am back, just like my savior. It's my second coming.
It's a second coming, indeed. But I'm great to really have you back. I would have loved for you to join in the conversation, that boxing conversation, because we know one thing here in Nigeria, in Africa, when there is a rivalry as little or as huge as this boxing bout, you know that when you have your fighter by your side, something spurs you, something gives you that motivation, and you go all out. And I saw that in Eubank Jr. when he went up against Conor Benn in that bout on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. There's this confidence that comes with, having your dad watching you from the stands, and even up close again. It's very important, very important for us in Africa, especially in Nigeria. We look forward to standing up and saying, the pride our parents get, or the dad would get saying, "That is my son."
Yes, I'm telling you,
my son getting the win. It's so important for us. It is so important for us, and we can see, right from one of the pictures being displayed there, there's this pride, that comes, with winning right in front of your dad. And the pride your father gets as well. So it's a very important win. Albeit a bit narrow win, but it's a very important one. And I think he can take this and just, celebrate over it while it lasts at this point.